Hello, it's me, it's Mrs. B, the book lady. I'm here to talk to you again about the Iowa Children Choice Award books. I've been doing this now for 18 years and I thoroughly enjoy sharing book talks with you. Now, a little bit about the Iowa Children's Choice Award. It started way back in 1978. It was organized by the Association for School Librarians, and its purpose was to encourage kids to read more good books and also to recognize some American authors. Now, this award is unique for a couple of reasons. One, it's only for Iowa kids in grades 3 through 6, just like you. And there are other awards for the other grades, but Iowa Children's Choice is just for you. And also, what makes it unique is that not only is it for 3rd through 6th grade students, it's by the same students, because all of these books were recommended and nominated by students across the state in grades 3 through 6. Now, I want you to remember that as you're reading books this year, if you come across a book that you think other kids in Iowa would like to read, please go to your library teacher and let them know of your suggestion, and they'll see about getting your suggestion onto the list. There are 2 rules. First off, it needs to be written by an American author, and secondly, it has to be a book that has been written within the last 5 years. So all of these books are relatively new books. Now, here's for the fun part. This year, if you read or have read to you at least 2 books on the list, then you, yes you, will get to vote for the next award winner. And usually the voting is done the end of March. So let's make it a goal that you're going to be able to vote at the end of March. Now, I want you to know that you should have each received a bookmark that has the list of books on it. They're listed in ABC order by title. And I'm going to be going right down the list and telling you about each of these 19 books. Now, if you hear about a book that you think that you would be interested in reading, I want you to draw a circle around it. And if you think, I just can't wait to read this book, I want you to put a little star next to it. And then when you go to the library, take the bookmark with you, and that will give you some ideas of what books you want to check out. Now, before we start, I need to tell you a couple of things. There are 2 books that have characters that are from India. So I will refer to them as Indians because they are from the country of India. Also, there are 4 books that are called novels in verse. And what that means is that the text looks like it's a poem. Now, the poem doesn't rhyme, but there's not a lot of words on each page, so the books do read fairly quickly. And I will be pointing out which 4 books those are. So, get your bookmark ready, and let's begin. Maggie is so excited. It's her birthday, and her folks have promised to take her to the animal shelter so she can pick out her very own dog. Oh, she can't wait. And when they arrive at the shelter, this cute little puppy comes bouncing up to them, and Maggie just knows that he's the one for her. And as they're snuggling and cuddling, Maggie notices that her eyes are starting to water, and pretty soon they're swelling up, and her skin is starting to itch. And that's when Maggie realizes that she is allergic. And tests reveal that not only is she allergic to dog hair, she is allergic to anything that has fur or feathers. Oh, this is so unfair. She can't believe it. Well, she tries other things for pets, but nothing seems to work. And then her new best friend, who just happens to live next door, she gets her own dog. Again, this is so unfair. Maggie soon learns it's not fun being allergic, but you're going to have fun reading Allergic because, did I mention, this book is a graphic novel. So it's going to read just like a comic book. Enjoy. This book is one of those, Alone, is one of those that I told you about that is a novel in verse. So even though it's a very thick book, it's not going to take you very long to read it. Because Maddie lied to her parents, she is alone, and I mean really alone. Here's how it happened. Maddie and her friends decided it would be fun to have a sleepover at her grandparents' apartment that was empty. Grandma and Grandpa are in Florida right now. And so all the girls decide that they're going to lie to their parents about where they're spending the night. Party without parents, party without parents. But on the night of the party, the other girls can't make it after all. And Maddie figures, hey, all the food and the beverages are already there. I'm going to go for it. Well, in the middle of the night, there comes an announcement that there is an imminent threat and everyone must leave town right now. Transports will be provided. Well, Maddie doesn't get the memo about it. She doesn't hear about the message at all. And the next morning, as she's walking home, the town is eerily deserted. The only familiar face that she sees is George, the neighbor's dog that's been left behind. And Maddie thinks, how could her family leave without her? And then she remembers she lied. Her folks think that she's with the other parent. Well, Maddie soon discovers that there's no cell or internet connections. She can't make any phone calls. Soon there's no electricity, no running water, no heat coming from the furnace. And now it's become a matter of survival. Maddie is forced to forage for food, water, and firewood in the abandoned houses and storefronts. And she wonders why aren't her folks coming for her? And then she starts thinking, maybe they didn't survive the imminent threat. Well, as the days turn into weeks and the weeks turn into months, we start to wonder, how long is Maddie going to be alone? So our next book is Becoming Muhammad Ali, and this book is unique for several reasons. One, it is a biographical novel, which is a story about a real person's life. Two, it has two authors, and that might be the reason why there are alternating chapters. The story is told from the point of view of Muhammad Ali and his best friend Lucky. And the fourth reason, it's another one of those novels in verse. So again, there aren't a lot of words on each page. Now, in case you're not familiar with the name Muhammad Ali, he was a totally awesome boxer. And in 1960, he won the gold medal for boxing in the Olympics. In 1977, there was a movie about him entitled The Greatest. And in 1999, Sports Illustrated magazine named Muhammad Ali the outstanding sportsman of the century. Now, this book is set in the 1950s, and when Muhammad Ali was growing up in Louisville, Kentucky. And when he was just about your age, he vowed that someday he would become the greatest boxer. And this is a story about what he does and the strategies he used to achieve this goal. It also describes how getting his new bike stolen was a turning point in his life. We also learn how his family, friends, and coaches helped him achieve his dream. Now, a lesson that we can learn from becoming Muhammad Ali is if you want something, set a goal, and then do everything in your power to make that dream a reality. In Becoming Ever After, Zachariah Jr., and he goes by the name ZJ right here, is worried about his dad, Zachariah Sr. And Dad is an NFL football player, and all the fans love him. And ZJ's friends love to come over and toss the football around in the backyard with Dad. I mean, who wouldn't be thrilled playing football with an NFL star? ZJ's best friends are Ollie, Daniel, and Derry. And they call themselves the Fantastic Four, and they swear they will always have each other's backs. Well, ZJ is going to need his friends more than he realized. It all started when Dad started having really bad headaches, and then pretty soon his hands began to tremble. He became moody and forgetful, and pretty soon the coach benched him. CJ wonders if this is going to become his family's new normal. And he also wonders, will his friends want to come around anymore? The last time they came over, Dad yelled at them, and then he forgot their names. ZJ just wants things to go back the way they were before Ever After. Now, before we go on, I need to tell you a couple things about this book. This story takes place about 20 years ago. And back then, the doctors did not know about this brain disease that Dad has. It happens when football players especially get concussions from getting hit in the head too many times. And fortunately, now we know more about it. The NFL has changed its rules, and there is treatment. So that's the good news. Can You See Me is a story about Tally, and she's autistic. Now, autism is kind of a difficult condition to explain because there's so many varying degrees of it. This book does an excellent job explaining why or how it feels to be autistic. Now, Tally says that she sees and feels things differently. Now, for example, she may react to loud noises or flashing lights or clothes that are too tight. And how she would react is that she'd fling her hands around, or she might start yelling. And most of the time, she really can't control those reactions. Now, we all know that starting middle school can be very stressful for anyone. And Tally knows that when she goes to school, that there will be some triggers that may set off her reactions. But she is determined that no one knows that she is autistic. But already, she's noticed that when she walks by, people have been whispering, "There goes the weirdo." And living with someone with autism can be very difficult too. Tally's big sister Nell is often embarrassed and frustrated by Tally's reactions, and she really is embarrassed when Tally insists on wearing a tiger mask when they go out in public. Tally says the mask makes her feel safe. Well, now the book, you might notice that this book has two authors also, And you might have guessed the reason it does such an excellent job in explaining autism is that one of the authors is autistic, and that is Libby Scott. Now, what you probably don't know is that Libby was only 11 years old when she co-authored this book. So it's pretty amazing with what she did. And if you like this book, Can You See Me? The good news, the authors have written a second book about Tally. It's called Do You Know Me? Which you might enjoy too. Although she's only 12 years old, Charlie Thorne needs to save the world by finding the last equation. Charlie, whose real name is Charlotte, is extremely smart. In fact, she's a genius. And the CIA, which is America's Central Intelligence Agency, needs Charlie's help to solve a puzzle that was created by another genius called Albert Einstein, even though it will put Charlie's life in grave danger. Now, many years ago, this famous scientist discovered something about energy. And Einstein made this discovery into an equation, a number sentence. And he named this number sentence Pandora. Now, he knew that the equation could benefit the whole world, but he also knew that the equation in the wrong hands could kill millions of people. So he decided to hide it, but he did leave some clues about where the hiding place was. Now, Einstein died way back in 1955, and ever since then, people have unsuccessfully been trying to look for and find this equation. But now some bad guys, and I mean really bad guys, called the Furies, are closing in on Pandora's hiding place. And it's up to the CIA to locate Pandora before the Furies do. I'm telling you, if you like adventure stories, this is the book for you. There is action on every page. You're going to read about Charlie skiing down very treacherous mountain paths. She's got to dodge bullets, and while she's in Italy, she gets arrested. So, and you keep wondering, will Charlie Thorne be able to find the last equation? City Spies is the first in a series of adventure novels, and it stars the team of 5 mismatched kids who come from around the world. Now, they have been recruited for their unique talents by the British Secret Intelligence Agency known as MI6. And their kids' code names correspond to their hometowns. So the 2 boys are Paris, who has excellent survival skills, and Rio, who is fantastic at sleight of hand movements. The 3 girls are Sydney, who's great at problem solving, Cat, which is short for Kathmandu, who is a wonder with numbers and discovering patterns in everyday life. And then there's Brooklyn. She's the computer whiz. The 2 adults on the team are a guy with a very unusual name of Mother and a woman by the name of Monty. And their headquarters is a castle in Scotland. Now, Brooklyn is the newest member of the team, and she is trying to convince the others and herself that she's up for the challenge of their next mission. And what is that next mission? To save the world. Again, there's some really bad guys who've been targeting some high-tech industries, and now they have plans of releasing a deadly virus at a youth conference. So, will the city spies be able to save the world and be successful? You're going to have to read the book to find out. William, also known as Scoob, got in trouble at school, and now he's grounded at home. So you can imagine how excited he is when his grandma shows up and says that she's going to take him on a road trip. Yes, maybe they'll be able to make a clean getaway. Now, it turns out that Grandma has sold her house and she has bought a RV to take on this road trip down memory lane through the southern states. Now, on the journey, Scoob learns more about his own heritage and about his grandparents, things that he had never known before. It turns out that Grandma and Grandpa had things really rough when they were starting out. You see, Grandma is white and Grandpa was black, and biracial marriages were not common back in the day. Scoob never knew his grandfather because he died before he was born. Now, Scoob and Grandma are on a trip that she planned to take with Grandpa 51 years ago. And along the way, they stop at places that were important to her, but they also stop at some historical places. So Scoob sees where Martin Luther King was a minister. He sees where Ruby Bridges went to school. And he learns that the world was not always a welcoming place for people who look like him. And it still isn't. And then things start to feel a little off, just not quite right. Like, why does Grandma keep switching the license plates on the motorhome? And why won't she accept any phone calls or texts from Scoob's dad? Maybe they're not making such a clean getaway after all. Not only is Efren divided, his family, who lives in California, is also divided. Efren's parents, who he calls Ama and Appa, don't have the papers that they need to stay in the country. This is a fact they do not let anyone know. Now, one day the worst thing happens. Ama does not come home from work. It seems that the authorities have come to her workplace, and anyone who did not have the correct papers, all of them were sent back to Mexico. The family is devastated. What are they going to do without Ama? Well, Appa decides he's going to get another job to try to raise some extra money that he can send so Ama can come back home. It's up to Efren to take care of his younger brother and sister. They're in kindergarten. And so he gets them up in the morning, feeds them, gets them off to school, and at night he puts them to bed. All things that Ama used to do. Now, Efren doesn't want anyone to know about his family situation. Not only his best friend, Daniel. Daniel's running for class president, and Efren's helping with his campaign. But we start to wonder, is there another candidate who would be better for the job? Someone that could help people like Ama? So, could that someone be Efren himself? You might have guessed that Efren's family is Hispanic, and there are many Spanish words and phrases throughout the text. Now, luckily for us, in the back of the book, there is a glossary that has all the Spanish words and phrases translated for us. So, when you read Efren Divided, not only are you going to be learning a new story, a great story, but you're also going to possibly learn some Spanish words. So, it's a win-win situation when you read Efren Divided. In Isaiah Dunn is my hero. Isaiah feels anything but a hero. Oh, sure, his dad used to write stories that were entitled The Amazing Adventures of Isaiah Dunn, Superhero. But those were just stories. Right now, the family, Isaiah, his little sister, and his mother, are going through a very rough time. Daddy has just died recently, and everyone misses him so much. Mama is so depressed, she doesn't even want to get out of bed in the morning. And as you can imagine, when she doesn't go to work, she loses her job. And when they can't pay the rent, they are kicked out of their apartment. And right now, they're living in a smelly motel, and Isaiah hates it there. Things aren't much better at school. Isaiah can't concentrate on his schoolwork, and there's this one girl, Angel, who's always picking on him. She calls him Isaiah Dumb instead of Isaiah Dunn. Luckily, he has his best friend Sneaky, but then something happens that could affect their friendship. Like I said, things are not going well for him. Isaiah tries various ways to earn money to save up so he and his family can move out of that smelly motel. But, what can he do? He's just a kid. He keeps on hoping that someday soon somebody will be able to say, Isaiah Dunn is my hero. Orange for the Sunsets is a historical fiction book that is set in 1972 in the African country of Uganda. Now, I need to give you a little bit of background before I tell you about the story. Long ago, the British ruled Uganda, and when they needed help to build the railroads there, they asked the people of India if they would come over and help, and they did. But then years later, when the British left Uganda, the Indians stayed. They took over the companies and the businesses, and the Indians got rich. The Africans who worked for them stayed living in poverty. And then in 1972, a new president took over. His name was Idi Amin, and he decided things needed to change. And so he gave the Indians 90 days to leave the country. And this threw the country into chaos. This is the story of two best friends who lived in Uganda during these very upsetting times. And it's told from their 2 points of view in alternating chapters. Now, these two friends are very different. Asha is an Indian girl, and she does not want to leave Uganda. It's been her home her whole life, and she does not want to leave. Yusufu is an African boy, and he doesn't want Asha to leave either. She's his best friend, and he doesn't know what he would do without her. But his African friends say if he's going to be loyal to Asha, he is being disloyal to his own country. And so Yusufu does not know what he's going to do. There are chants of Africa for Africans, Africa for Africans, chanted in the streets, which are patrolled by soldiers with guns now. Yes, their world has been turned upside down. Now in the back, there's an author's note that says that she and her family lived in Uganda during these unsettling times. And there's actually pictures in the back of the book of the author's family. And she based the book on stories that she heard from her family and friends during this time. So I think that it's kind of an interesting book that gave me some history that I did not know. Red, White, and Whole is another one of those books that is a novel in verse. Rhea wishes that she felt more whole in Red, White, and Whole. Her world feels like it's been split in two. Now, her parents came to America soon after they were married from India, and Rhea was born in Kentucky. Now, Rhea spends her weekends with her family and her Indian friends on the weekends, but she spends her weekdays at school with her American friends. The good news is that she has fantastic friends in both places. Rhea would like to dress more like her American friends and do the things that they do, but her mother, she doesn't really want to abandon her Indian culture, but she just wants to feel more Americanized. Her mom and dad don't understand at all, especially her mother. And then mom gets very, very sick. And Rhea comes to the realization that someday she would like to be a doctor and help people who, like her mother, are very sick. But that might be an unrealistic goal because, you see, Rhea literally faints at the sight of blood. And how could you have a doctor who can't handle blood? This is a story about family, about friends, and I learned a lot about the Indian culture, and you can too when you read Red, White, and Whole. Show Me a Sign is a historical fiction novel that's set in the early 1800s on an island off the coast of Massachusetts called Martha's Vineyard. The main character's name is Mary, and she's deaf. She cannot hear a thing, and neither can her father, but her mother can hear. Now back then, there was a large number of people on the island who were deaf, and they developed a sign language so that they could communicate with each other. Everyone, hearing and deaf alike, knew this sign language. Now the islanders are descendants of early English settlers, and they are hardworking, prosperous farmers and fishermen who tried to live in harmony with the Native Americans on the island. Everyone's living pretty much together and getting along. And then a young scientist by the name of Andrew Noble comes over from the mainland, and it's his goal to discover why there are so many deaf people on the island. So he takes water samples and soil samples, and he interviews the islanders just to discover what's going on. Right from the start, Mary does not trust him. She finds him crude and rude, and his questions are inappropriate. And you're going to be amazed about what happens to Mary when Andrew leaves the island. Now, at the end of the book, there's a lot of information, historical information about the island and the people who lived there. And also you will find a chart with sign language. Now, the first chart here is about the American Sign Language, which uses the right hand. On this side is the sign language that the islanders used, and they use both hands. Now, when I was in college, I learned the American Sign Language alphabet for the right hand. And I discovered that a lot of the letters the signs look like the letters themselves. So I, it looks like an I, L looks like an L, Y looks like a Y. And the cool thing about it is when you put these letters together, you have the sign for I love you, and I do. Show me the sign. Simon B. Ryman is a story about Simon Barnes, a boy who can easily make up rhymes and poems in his head. So Simon B. Ryman, get it? Simon has dreams of becoming a rap star someday, and he already has a stage name picked out for himself. He's going to be known as the Notorious D.O.G. Woof, woof. But unfortunately, Simon is very shy. And so all of these raps stay in his head. Right now he's worried about school starting, but as it turns out, it's going to be okay. Simon has always been the smallest kid in his class, and he tries to stay on the down low and out of the way of the bullies. Well, it turns out that Simon's new teacher is a fun but kind of unconventional teacher who also likes to rap. How cool is that, Simon thinks. But then they get their first assignment. The teacher has said that everyone is going to be given a everybody is going to be giving a oral presentation about a timely topic in their Chicago neighborhood. Oh no. And the assignment is due next week. No. And Simon is going to go first. Oh no. Simon is terrified. What could he possibly talk about? He has and there's no way he can get up and talk in front of everybody. Oh, he doesn't know what to do. And then he notices, as he's walking home, Sonny, who's a familiar guy in their neighborhood, and he finds out that Sonny is homeless, and he thinks, oh, here's a timely topic he could talk about, homelessness. And as he gets to know Sonny and learn more about his story, Simon might just get the confidence he needs to get up and give his presentation and do something to make a positive change in his neighborhood. And you can bet Simon will be rhyming about it all. Stand Up Yumi Chung is another story about a shy kid. This girl goes to a fancy schmancy school in Los Angeles, California. Now, her parents own a Korean barbecue restaurant, and they only want the best for their girls. And that's why they send her to this fancy school, because they think if she attends this school, she has a better chance of getting into a good medical school like her older sister did. But Yumi really doesn't like the school, and she really doesn't want to be a doctor. She wants to be a stand-up comedian, like her hero on YouTube, Jasmine Jasper. But she'll probably do what her parents want her to do. She always does. Mom has found out that if Yumi takes a test this summer and does well on it, she could win a scholarship, which would be a good thing because the school is very expensive and the restaurant isn't doing real well right now. The customers aren't coming in like they used to. Mom has even hired a tutor to help Yumi before she takes the test. Well, and Yumi thinks, oh, that's just great. That's not how I plan to spend my summer vacation. But again, she's going to do what her parents want her to. Well, one day she's on her way to the library and she notices a new comedy club has opened in their neighborhood. And she takes a peek inside and who does she see? There is her idol, Jasmine Jasper, right there in her neighborhood. Well, it turns out Jasmine is running a comedy camp for kids, and Yumi gets confused or mistaken with a camper who did not show up. And before you know it, Yumi is participating in the camp activities, and she's up on stage telling jokes. She is in heaven. But we start to wonder, what's going to happen when her folks find out? And you know, parents always find out. And what will happen if the real camper shows up? Will Yumi Chung have the courage to stand up and tell the truth? Read the book to find out. Ryan Hart is always looking for a way to make sunshine. She tries to be the best sister, the best daughter, the best friend that she can be. She does get kind of annoyed when people ask her, hey, how come you got a boy's name? And Ryan patiently explains that Ryan means king, and her folks named her Ryan so that she would become a leader. And Ryan does all that she can to live up to her folks' expectations. But now she's got other things on her mind. Her dad has a new job and it's not paying as much, so the family is forced to move to a smaller house. And the good news is that Ryan gets her own bedroom, but it's so tiny. And the other thing that's on her mind is the upcoming talent show. She wants to participate, but she doesn't know what to do. She's really good at cooking and baking, but how can you do that on stage? And she also knows that if she gets up and tries to talk in front of people, she freezes up. So that's not an option. What can she do? And she wonders, how can she make sunshine from these situations? Our next book is another unique book in the fact that it's told from the point of view from two whales in the wild. Now, this book also has more illustrations than any other book on the list. Throughout the book, there are pictures of whales and sea life, and it's really kind of cool. It's almost like a picture book. This is the story about Vega and her little brother, Deneb, and they are very happy just swimming around in the Salish Sea, which is in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Washington State. Now, Vega is in training to become a wayfinder like her mother, and someday it's going to be her job to lead the pod, which is the name of the group of whales, to the feeding areas safely, and they'll be looking for salmon. Now, unfortunately, the number of salmon has been decreasing mostly because of pollution. And then two really bad things happen, and Vega and Deneb get separated from the pod. And this is the whale of the tale of what they do to try to find their family once again, and all the dangers that they face along the way. Now, the author did a lot of research before she wrote this book, and there's a lot of information, factual information, at the end of the book about whales and sea life. So when you read A Whale in the Wild, you will learn a lot too. I hope you enjoy it. Wild River is another story about survival. This is a story about 5 kids who lived in New Hampshire, and they were chosen to go on a whitewater rafting trip way out in Montana. Now, the kids are Daniel, Tony, Deke, Maya, and Amani. The adults on the trip are Sky, the guide, and Cindy, a counselor. And when they arrived where the adventure is supposed to start, Sky thinks, the river's a little low, and I don't know that we're going to see a lot of rapids on this river, but he knows of a place on the Crazy River where there'd be a lot more white water. It's about 100 miles farther into the wilderness. Well, everybody agrees that yes, they should go farther and go to the Crazy River and look for those bigger rapids. Unfortunately, they do not have a chance to let anyone know of their change of plans. Well, the first day on the Crazy River, things are everything that they wanted. There are thrills and chills, and they're just having the best time. But that night at their campsite, everyone is awakened when someone screams, "The dam has burst! Get away from the river now!" And the kids scramble to get to higher ground, and the adults are pushing the kids up the cliff. Sky just has enough time to fling a backpack to Maya that's full of survival gear before he is swept away by the raging river. No one sees what happens to Cindy. So now it's just the 5 kids in the wilderness. And they have to find their way back to civilization so that they can get rescued. And on the way, they face many dangers, such as a mountain lion, a bear, and worst of all, fighting among themselves about who should be in charge of the survival items. Now, I'm telling you, this is a real page turner. I could not put this book down, especially when I read how the author ends each chapter It's a real cliffhanger. Now, at the end of the book, there are some survival tips in case you ever find yourself on a wild river. Now, there's a medical reason why Ross Malloy is giving us a wink on the cover of our last book. He has a rare form of cancer in his eye, and his eye hurts from the cancer treatment, and so he squints and winks a lot. Ross longs to just be a normal guy who's trying to fit in at school, but the cancer makes that impossible. Now the doctor has ordered Ross to wear a hat at all times to protect his eye. And there's a mean person who takes a picture or has a picture of Ross or posts a picture of Ross on social media wearing his hat, and they title the picture Cancer Cowboy. Not only does Ross have to worry about social media, he also has to worry about his friends leaving, bullies, and losing his hair. Music is the one highlight in his life. Frank, the technician who is giving him his cancer treatments, has agreed to teach Ross how to play the guitar. And maybe, just maybe, he'll be good enough to enter the upcoming talent contest at school. Now, remember how our first book, Allergic, was a graphic novel? Well, our last book has shades of being a graphic novel. There are little drawings throughout the text, and almost every chapter has a comics page in it that stars Bat Pig. Now, Bat Pig is Ross's alter ego, and whatever happens to Ross happens to Bat Pig. And Bat Pig always comes out on top. Wink, wink. Okay, that is the end of my 19 book talks. I hope that you have found at least one book that you just can't wait to read on the list. And I wish you happy reading.